webcast on how to manage your anger at clients. So what prompted this talk is in the span of 1 week, I received 2 emails from real estate brokers who were angry at their clients. One of the things that was similar about both situations is that the brokers were both listing brokers, and they were both frustrated with their sellers, who were the sellers were refusing to adjust the terms to meet the clear market feedback. In one case, it was a seller who was refusing to lower the list price of the home in response to no interest from the market at all. The buyers, the seller was asking too much for the property. In both situations, the listing broker sent these angry emails. In one case, it was sent to the seller directly. In another case, it was sent to the seller's attorney. These stories are not over, so it remains to be seen whether the listing broker will get in trouble, whether the listing brokers will get in trouble in these situations. But they have a high likelihood of, especially one of them, has a high likelihood of getting that listing broker in trouble. Now, before we continue, let me continue with my basic disclaimer. I am an attorney licensed in the state of Colorado. If you are dealing with real property, or if you are a real estate broker outside of the state of Colorado and you have one of these situations, I hope that this webcast is interesting. However, it is not legal advice, and you should consult an attorney who is licensed in the state of the property or in your state to deal with your specific situation. All right, let me continue. One of the things to recognize about these situations is these are problems that all professionals face. It's not unusual for physicians to get frustrated with their patients. It's not unusual for lawyers to get frustrated with their clients. But what makes it worse for real estate brokers, and it's important to recognize what makes it so much harder for real estate brokers, is let's look at me, for example. If I'm dealing with a client who is not taking my advice, doing things that sabotages their position, makes it harder for me to accomplish my client's goals, it's much easier for me to end the relationship with my client, because for most professionals, the relationship between the professional and the client does not get that far out of balance. I might do work for a client, I send that client a bill. At that moment in time, I have some investment, but then the client pays the bill and the relationship balances out again. I do some more work for the client, I do some more work for the client, I'm into the client, I'm making that investment time, and then if I'm managing things correctly, they pay the bill and the relationship comes back into balance. One of the things that makes this situation more frustrating, more challenging for real estate brokers is real estate brokers work for free, 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 and only get paid typically if they see the transaction to the end and there's a closing. As a consequence, real estate brokers are more like contingency fee attorneys. They suffer more from some of the stupidity of their clients, and the real estate broker is hurt more financially because of the client's stupidity, frankly, in some of these situations. We're assuming stupidity. It doesn't mean it's clients are always wrong. Now, and it's harder. It's harder for a real estate broker to pull the plug and just end the relationship, and that enhances the frustration. So, how do you avoid these blow-ups with clients? I suggest there's two things you do psychologically to decrease the likelihood of these blow-ups. The first one is to recognize it will get you in trouble. When you send texts, when you send emails, when you leave voicemails, it leaves a record, and those records make it much harder for me to defend you in these cases. So don't blow up and leave a record. And in the digital world, we're essentially always leaving records, and almost always leaving records. Just don't blow up at your clients. The other way perhaps to avoid it, to work as a check is. It just doesn't do any good. Getting mad at somebody and blowing up at them is not going to cause them to change the position. Move away from it. Now, does that mean you have to accept the unreasonable positions of your clients? No, not necessarily. I'd like to spend a minute talking about other ways of addressing these situations. I think there are three parts to addressing these situations. One part, the key part, is to recognize you will not have a 100% batting average in solving these situations. You just have to be resigned to the fact that it's part of the cost of doing business that you will not be able to resolve all of these situations. Your clients will be unreasonable from time to time. That unreasonableness will cause you to lose deals, and that's just part of doing business. It's part of the bitter. Hopefully there's enough sweet in being a real estate broker that it offsets it. The second thing to consider is I think it really helps to genuinely try and understand your client's position. There are three reasons for this. One of them is if you genuinely try and understand their position, it is possible that they will come up with some rationale or facts that you weren't aware of. You will become educated, and it is possible that either you will come to see it their way, or if you don't come to see it their way, you might be able to reach some sort of middle position with them. Second reason is that it just tremendously reduces your risk if your clients perceive that you are empathetic, not empathic, empathetic, if you sympathize with their situation. They're just less likely to get mad at you if they perceive that you genuinely sympathize with their situation. And then the third reason is if you do make a bona fide attempt to understand their position, and if you sincerely desire to understand where they're coming from, it enhances your credibility when you respectfully disagree. The third thing to keep in mind is you have to have a win-win or no deal kind of mentality. If in the examples I've given you for this situation, for example, if the seller refuses to lower the price to meet market feedback, then maybe you need to start having discussions with your seller about ending the listing agreement. Now, there are legal issues about whether you have the right to compel an ending of the listing agreement, and you might not, but in the real world, most sellers want to have an enthusiastic listing broker, and they recognize that in the beginning of the relationship, you were their first choice. That's why they hired you, but there are other brokers out there. And usually it's not too hard to bring about a termination of one of these arrangements. If it does become a challenge, talk to me if you're in Colorado, talk to your own lawyer if you're in another state, and we can help you avoid wasting your time with unreasonable clients so that you can move on to other more productive or more enjoyable activities. Thank you so much for listening to us. We hope you enjoy our other broadcasts. Stay tuned for the next one.